She entered the wrong executive meeting room, not knowing the quiet man inside was the tower's reclusive CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The soft hum of office chatter drifted through the glass-paneled lobby of Ward Tower, mixing with the faint echo of heels tapping across polished marble. From the security desk to the elevator banks, everything felt too bright, too pristine, too expensive for someone like Maya Torres. She tightened her grip on her second-hand laptop bag, the strap frayed near the buckle, brushing against her thrift store blazer as she hurried across the floor. Her reflection flashed on a chrome column, tired eyes, a loose strand behind her ear, and the unmistakable wrinkle in her skirt she had ironed 3 times before leaving her tiny studio that morning. She whispered to herself like a small prayer. Conference room E17. E17, don't be late again, Maya. Because one more late arrival, and her new supervisor at Halden & Company would absolutely fire her. She could still hear his voice from yesterday. You're competent, Maya, but competence doesn't matter if you can't show up on time. The elevator chimed. A rush of suited employees stepped off, all smelling faintly of citrus cologne and expensive coffee. Maya slipped in, pressing the button for floor 47 with a shaky finger. As the doors closed, her heart thudded in her chest. Today was supposed to be her chance to redeem herself, a cross-team huddle with senior analysts. She just needed to be on time. Just once. The elevator glided upward in smooth silence until the doors slid open onto a quiet executive corridor she had never seen before. She stepped out, blinking. The floor felt wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. Too polished. But her phone buzzed with a reminder. E17. Now. So she followed the sleek hallway lined with frosted glass. She pushed open the door with the engraved number on it and froze. This wasn't a buzzing conference room. This wasn't even close. Inside, there was just one man. A single, solitary figure sitting at a long mahogany table, sleeves rolled to his forearms, head bowed over a leather notebook as morning sunlight spilled behind him. He looked up when the door clicked shut. Dark hair, quiet eyes, expression unreadable but calm. So calm it almost startled her. Maya's breath caught. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, she stammered, gripping the laptop to her chest like a shield. I must have the wrong room. I didn't mean to interrupt. She fumbled for the door handle, cheeks burning, already imagining her boss's disappointment when she inevitably arrived late. But the man's voice stopped her. Low, warm, unhurried. If you need a place to breathe, he said, gently closing his notebook, you can stay for a moment. Maya blinked, confused, her nerves momentarily short-circuited by the unexpected kindness. Most executives she'd met barked orders before she even introduced herself. But this man, this stranger, spoke with the kind of quiet that carried weight. She didn't know it yet, not in this moment where her hands trembled and her heartbeat drowned out rational thought. But she had just stepped into the private meeting room of Elliot Ward, the reclusive owner of the entire building, the man whose face almost never appeared in press photos. The billionaire people whispered about in the elevators, but rarely saw. And she had just barged straight into his sanctuary by mistake. For a long second, Maya stood there, feeling the warmth of his voice settle into her bones, steadying her more than she expected. She had been bracing for irritation, for the kind of sharp tone executives used on people like her. But instead this quiet stranger looked at her, as if interruptions were normal, as if her presence was not an inconvenience, but simply a moment. She swallowed hard, still gripping the laptop against her chest. I did not mean to barge in. I really should go, she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Something about the room felt oddly safe, like slipping into a quiet pocket of the world where no one demanded anything from her. The man offered a small, almost imperceptible nod toward the chair nearest him. Stay until your hands stop shaking, he said. His eyes moved to her laptop bag, then back to her, calm, unreadable. Maya blinked, realizing with embarrassment that her hands really were trembling. She set the bag down slowly, easing into the chair like someone afraid one wrong move would shatter the silence. She smoothed her wrinkled skirt, forcing a breath out through her nose. The man returned to his notebook, not dismissing her, not staring, simply giving her space to collect herself. It was strangely considerate for someone who looked like he belonged in the upper floors of the tower, the one she had only seen in company orientation slides. "Rough morning?" he asked, not looking up as he wrote a clean, straight line across the page. She let out a humorless laugh. "Try rough month." He hummed softly, not in judgment, but like someone who knew the feeling. That alone eased something tight in her chest. "Let me guess," he said, closing his pen. "First job in the building? New environment? Something always goes wrong." She blinked. "How did you know?" "It is a tower full of ambitious people," he replied. "Everyone looks a little lost on their first week." "It is my second week," she corrected under her breath. "And I already feel like I am one mistake away from getting fired." For the first time, he met her eyes fully. Up close, there was depth there, something observant, something that made her feel seen in a way that was almost disarming. "You walked into the wrong room," he said softly. "That is not a fireable offense. It is human." She exhaled slowly, warmth blooming in her chest. Nobody had said something kind to her in days. Maybe weeks. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once, as if that was the entire purpose of his morning. A moment passed before he spoke again. "What is your name?" She hesitated, unsure why the question felt so significant. "Maya. Maya Torres." "Maya," he repeated, as if testing how it sounded in his voice. "I am Elliot. Just Elliot. No title, no department, no explanation of why he had a private executive room to himself." She assumed he was some kind of mid-level strategist, or maybe a visiting consultant using an empty space. Nothing about him screamed CEO. No designer suit jacket, no flashy watch, no entourage, no security. Just a quiet man with rolled sleeves and neat handwriting. She liked that version. It felt real. Outside the windows, the rain began to thicken, streaking down the glass in silver threads. Maya glanced at the time and jolted upright. "Oh no, my meeting. I really have to run." She scrambled for her laptop. Elliot stood as well, slow and composed. "Take the elevator on the left," he said. "It will get you closer to the correct floor." She almost asked how he knew which floor she needed, but there was no time. "Thank you, Elliot, for everything." He offered a faint smile, quiet but warm. "Good luck, Maya." She hurried out, the door clicking behind her, completely unaware that the man she had just left was the one name everyone in the tower spoke of in hushed tones. Completely unaware that Elliot Ward watched her go with an expression that suggested her unexpected arrival had shifted something in his meticulously structured world. Completely unaware that this small mistake would become the beginning of the most important connection of her life. By the time Maya reached the correct floor, her pulse was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She rushed into the conference room breathless, cheeks flushed from both embarrassment and the sprint through the hallway. Her supervisor glanced at her with that familiar tight-lipped stare that said, without words, "You are late again." She whispered a quick apology and slid into the nearest empty chair, pulling out her laptop while praying no one would ask her to present anything. But as the meeting droned on, her mind kept drifting back to the quiet man in the wrong room. Elliot. The way he had spoken so calmly, the way he looked at her without impatience, the way he had said her name. She had never met anyone like that in the building. Most people here seemed permanently in a hurry, constantly checking their watches, always stressed, always calculating. Elliot had been still, grounded, almost peaceful. She almost wondered if she had imagined the entire moment, but the warmth in her chest said she had not. When the meeting finally ended an hour later, Maya practically sagged with relief. She barely survived 3 rounds of data updates and 2 unexpected questions from senior analysts, but she had managed not to embarrass herself further. As she stepped out into the hallway, her phone buzzed with a text from her mother asking if she could pick up medication later. Another expense. Another reminder of how thin her paycheck stretched. Maya sighed, hugging her. Bag tighter. The elevator ride down was packed, noisy, filled with chatter about deadlines and deliverables. She kept her eyes on the glowing numbers, trying to focus on breathing evenly. But when the doors opened on the lobby level, her entire body froze for a heartbeat. Elliot was standing near the massive window overlooking the city, hands in his pockets, gaze tilted toward the rain outside. He looked different in natural light, softer somehow, like the weight he carried behind his eyes had settled into something thoughtful rather than heavy. Maya hesitated, unsure if she should approach him. Maybe he would not remember her. Maybe she had misread his kindness. But when he turned, his eyes found hers instantly, as if he had been waiting. There was the slightest curve of a smile. "Looks like you made it to your meeting," he said. "Barely," she admitted, stepping closer. "Thank you for the elevator tip. I would have shown up 10 minutes later without it. I am glad you made it." His tone was simple, sincere, free of the politeness people use just to sound nice. Maya nodded, unsure why her heart felt oddly light. She cleared her throat. "I never got to ask, what do you do here? You seem to have your own room, and everything." He paused for half a second, then offered the same understated answer as before. "I work in this building." That was all. No further details. No titles. It should have felt evasive, but somehow it did not. She only nodded, figuring he preferred privacy. After all, plenty of consultants and external strategists rotated through the tower. Maybe he was one of them. Before she could ask anything else, her supervisor's voice echoed across the lobby. "Maya, I need the revised report before lunch." Her stomach dropped. "Yes, I will send it right away," she called out. She turned back to Elliot, giving a small, apologetic shrug. "Duty calls. It seems your job keeps you busy," he said gently. "Busy enough to forget lunch most days," she joked, then instantly regretted revealing that much. She did not want to sound desperate or disorganized. But Elliot did not laugh at her or look annoyed. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, almost as if thinking. "There is a small cafe on the mezzanine level," he said. "It is quiet. Not many people know it exists. You should eat something today." Maya blinked, startled by the suggestion. "Are you recommending it to me?" "Yes," he replied simply. "You looked like you needed somewhere calm." Heat crept up her neck at how easily he read her. "Thank you. Maybe I will check it out." He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement, before she hurried off again, weaving through the crowd. She did not look back until she reached the escalator, and when she did, Elliot was still standing there, watching her with that same unreadable, quiet intensity, as if her presence had lingered even after she had left the room. She had no idea that this was only the second of many small moments that would pull their lives closer, thread by thread, until the truth could no longer stay hidden. For the rest of that morning, Maya tried to focus on her spreadsheets, but her mind refused to cooperate. Every time she typed a number, her thoughts drifted back to Elliot standing by the window, rain streaking behind him like a watercolor scene. Why had he remembered her? Why had he suggested a cafe he clearly knew well? Why did everything about him feel strangely grounding, as if simply being near him shifted the air around her? At noon her stomach growled loud enough for her coworker to glance over. She pressed a hand over her midsection, cheeks warming, and finally decided to take Elliot's suggestion. The mezzanine cafe was tucked away behind a row of indoor plants, hidden in plain sight. When she stepped inside, she immediately understood why he had recommended it. The world seemed to soften here. Warm pendant lights glowed over quiet tables, and the hum of conversation was a gentle, comforting background instead of a corporate roar. She ordered the cheapest soup and half sandwich combo, then chose a corner seat where she could breathe for the first time all day. As she settled in, she pulled out her worn sketchbook. It was a habit she carried everywhere, a small ritual that reminded her who she wanted to be. She flipped to a blank page, letting her pencil glide lightly across the surface. A sketch of the cafe counter began to form, then the curve of the lights, then the silhouette of a man near the window. She froze when she realized the outline looked familiar, almost too familiar. Broad shoulders, relaxed posture, quiet presence. Elliot. She had not meant to draw him, but he had slipped into her lines without permission. She quickly covered the page with her hand, shaking her head at herself. "Get a grip, Maya," she whispered. "You barely know him." Still, she could not stop the small smile tugging at her lips. After lunch, she hurried back to work and managed to push through the afternoon without further disasters. But when the clock neared 5, she received an unexpected message from her supervisor. "Deliver the revised proposal to floor 60. Hand it directly to the executive office." Maya blinked. Floor 60. That was high above anything her team normally accessed. Most employees never set foot past floor 55 unless invited. Why did they need her to go? She gathered the documents, smoothed her blazer, and stepped into the elevator. As she ascended, her heartbeat rose with every floor. When the doors opened, the atmosphere changed instantly. Floor 60 was quiet in a way that felt intentional, like the walls themselves were made to muffle noise. Plush carpets softened her footsteps. Every office door was sleek, frosted glass, and backlit with subtle lighting. She approached the main desk where a receptionist looked up with a polite but distant smile. "Delivery from Halden and Company," Maya said, offering the folder with both hands. "For the executive review." The receptionist took it, but before Maya could turn away, a familiar voice drifted from the hallway. "Maya." She froze. Slowly, she turned. Elliot was standing a few steps away, sleeves rolled up again, as if he lived in a state of quiet work. The receptionist immediately straightened, her tone respectful. "Mr. Ward, do you need anything?" Maya's breath caught. Mr. Ward. The name echoed through her mind, hitting her all at once. Her chest tightened. Elliot Ward. That could not be right. The owner of the tower. The CEO whose signature was on every contract, every memo, every announcement. The man half the building referred to as the ghost, because he rarely appeared in public. She stared at him, heart knocking against her ribs. He took a few steps closer, his expression softening when he saw the confusion and shock flooding her face. "I did not expect you to be up here today," he said gently. The receptionist discreetly stepped away, leaving them in a bubble of silence. Maya tried to speak, but her voice came out strained. "Mr. Ward? You are Elliot Ward." He held her gaze, not flinching, not hiding, but there was a trace of regret resting at the corner of his eyes. "Yes," he said quietly. "I was going to tell you. Just not like this." Her stomach dropped. Her mind swirled. Everything she thought she knew about him, every calm moment, every quiet kindness, hit differently now. He had not lied, but he had not told the truth either. And she had walked right into his private world without knowing a thing about who he really was. For a long moment, the air between them held a delicate, painful tension, like something precious balancing on the edge of a fall. Maya swallowed hard, her voice a whisper. "Why did you not tell me who you were?" For a moment, Elliot did not answer. He just stood there in the soft glow of the executive floor lighting, his eyes lowered slightly, as if he was choosing his words with the same precision he used to sign multi-million-dollar contracts. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, careful, almost apologetic. "Because the moment you walked into that room," he said, "you looked at me like I was just a person, not a position, not a reputation, just someone sitting there. I did not want that to disappear before I understood why it meant something to me." Maya felt her breath catch, her pulse quickening as his words sank in. She had expected excuses, maybe even a dismissive statement about privacy, but not this. Not vulnerability. Not honesty that sounded so painfully sincere. "I did not want to influence the way you spoke to me," he continued. "People behave differently when they know who I am. They filter themselves. Their kindness becomes rehearsed. Their honesty becomes cautious." His gaze lifted to hers, steady and unguarded. "You were not any of those things." Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to look away, but his eyes held her in place, not by force but by a strange, disarming gravity she did not know how to escape. "But you still hid it," she whispered. "You let me think you were someone else." He inhaled slowly, nodding once. "I did, and I should have told you earlier. I am sorry for that." The apology hung between them, surprisingly gentle. He took one more step toward her, leaving only a few feet between them in the quiet hallway. "I know what you might be thinking," he said softly. "That I was trying to observe you or test you or make fun of the situation. But the truth is, I liked the way you treated me. I liked the way you talked about your life, your mother, your sketchbook. It felt real. And I have not had anything real in a very long time." The words struck her in a place she did not expect, stirring something vulnerable inside her. Maya swallowed, unsure whether she felt more comforted or more overwhelmed. "I do not know what to say," she murmured. Elliot offered a faint, almost bittersweet smile. "You do not have to say anything yet." The silence that followed was soft but heavy, full of the tension of two people suddenly seeing each other far more clearly than before. Maya finally forced herself to speak. "I should get back. My supervisor will wonder why I am not downstairs. Elliot nodded, stepping back slightly to give her space, the professional distance returning even though the emotional one had dissolved completely. Of course, he said quietly. But Maya, if you ever feel overwhelmed again, or lost, or like the tower is too much, you can come back to that room on floor 47. The one you walked into by mistake. She blinked. Why? Because it is yours as much as mine now, he said with a softness she did not expect. You found it first. Something inside her shifted, something small but undeniably warm. She clutched her bag a little tighter and managed a quiet, "Thank you, Elliot." He nodded once more, and she turned to leave, her footsteps echoing down the carpeted hallway. She did not see the way he watched her, his expression thoughtful, conflicted, as if battling the very thing he had spent years avoiding, connection. When she finally reached the elevator and stepped inside, her heart was still racing. Her mind spun with everything he had said, everything she had felt, everything she was trying desperately to process. The doors slid shut, and she exhaled shakily. She had come to drop off a proposal. Instead, she had crossed paths with the one man she had never expected to meet, let alone understand. And as the elevator descended, she realized something unsettling. She wanted to see him again, not the CEO, not the figure behind locked offices and polished signatures, but Elliot, the quiet man who had offered her a place to breathe, the man she had accidentally found by simply walking into the wrong room. And now, without meaning to, she had walked into something else entirely, something she was not sure she was ready for, yet could not bring herself to step away from. For the rest of that week, Maya tried to convince herself that nothing had changed, that she could simply return to her normal routine and pretend she had never stepped onto the executive floor or learned who Elliot truly was. She showed up early each morning, buried herself in spreadsheets, avoided unnecessary small talk, and kept her head down the way she had always done. But the truth followed her everywhere. Every time she passed a window, she remembered him standing by the glass. Every time she wrote an email, she heard his calm voice saying her name. And every time she walked past the elevator bank, a small, traitorous part of her wondered if he might be somewhere beyond those polished doors. On Wednesday afternoon, her supervisor sent her to deliver updated analytics to a senior manager on floor 49. Maya stepped into the elevator, gripping the folder tightly, and exhaled. She had taken this route 3 times since her encounter with Elliot, and she had not seen him again. Maybe that was for the best. Maybe she needed distance. The elevator doors opened on floor 49, and she stepped out, scanning the hallway for the correct office. She was halfway there when she heard footsteps behind her and a familiar voice say, "Maya?" She froze. Slowly, she turned around. Elliot stood a few feet away, dressed in a dark charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled the same way as the first day she met him, as if that was his quiet signature. He was holding a tablet in one hand, but his attention was entirely on her. "I thought that was you," he said with a gentle smile. Her chest tightened, both anxious and relieved. "I was just delivering documents," she said quickly, as if she needed to justify why she was there. "I did not come to bother anyone." "You have never bothered me," he replied. The hallway felt suddenly smaller, warmer, as if the air bent around his presence. "How have you been?" She hesitated. "Busy, trying not to get fired." She joked lightly, though her voice cracked with truth. Elliot's brow furrowed. "You are good at what you do. They should see that." Heat rushed to her cheeks. Compliments were rare in her department. Genuine ones even rarer. "Thank you," she murmured. "I mean it," he said softly. "You are smart. You notice things. You adapt quickly. That matters more than people think." She looked at him, surprised by how carefully he spoke, as if each word was chosen not to impress her, but to anchor her. Before she could respond, a group of executives stepped out of a nearby boardroom, their voices loud, their presence commanding. The moment they saw Elliot, they straightened instantly, almost stiffening. One of them nodded at him with clear deference. "Mr. Ward, the quarterly briefing is ready whenever you are." Maya's breath caught again. She had forgotten, for a moment, who she was talking to. Elliot gave them a polite nod. "I will be there shortly." The executives hurried away, leaving a heavy silence behind them. Maya glanced at the ground, suddenly aware of the impossible distance between their worlds. "You should go," she said quietly. "They are waiting." He studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable but softened with something that felt like reluctance. "I want to ask you something first," he said. Her heart fluttered nervously. "What is it? Have you been avoiding me?" he asked gently. She stiffened. "I have not. I did not know if I should talk to you after everything. You are the CEO of the entire tower, and I am just me." His eyes softened at the edges. "I do not want you to feel small next to me." The words slipped into her like warmth through a crack in a cold room. "But I do," she admitted. "I did not mean to. She gestured vaguely at his tailored shirt, his calm posture, the quiet authority he carried even when standing still. "You live in a different world." He stepped a little closer, not enough to overwhelm her, but enough to let her feel the sincerity radiating from him. "I do not want that world to get in the way of something that feels important," he said. Her breath trembled. "Important? Yes," he said simply. "Every time I see you, it feels like a moment I am supposed to pay attention to." Maya's pulse thudded in her ears. She searched his face, looking for any hint of insincerity, but found only truth. Quiet, steady truth. "I do not know where this is going," she whispered. "You do not have to know," he said. "We can start with something simple. A walk, a coffee, a conversation where you are not running off to a meeting." Her lips parted in a breath she did not realize she was holding. "You want to get coffee with me?" "I do," he said gently. "If you will let me." For the first time since learning his full name, since realizing the weight he carried, she felt the fear loosen just a little. Not disappear, but soften. "Maybe," she whispered. "Maybe I will." He smiled, small but real, and she felt it echo somewhere deep inside her. "Then I will be here," he said, "whenever you are ready." And as he walked away toward the boardroom, executives stepping aside to let him pass, Maya stood in the hallway with her heart beating out a new, terrifying, beautiful truth. She was falling for the man behind the title, and she did not know how to stop. For the next 2 days, Maya replayed Elliot's words in her head so many times she began to doubt whether she had imagined them. A walk, a coffee, a conversation that was not rushed or accidental. She wanted that more than she was willing to admit, but fear wrapped around her ribs like a tightening band. She worked on the 47th floor. He practically owned the sky above her. What would people say if they saw them together? What would her supervisor think? What if she became a rumor before she became anything at all? On Friday morning, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting her blazer for the 3rd time, wondering if she was reading too much into everything. Maybe he had asked out of politeness. Maybe important did not mean the same thing to him. Maybe she should forget it. But when she stepped into the tower lobby, she saw him. Elliot was standing near the marble column, hands in his pockets, looking not like a billionaire CEO, but like someone waiting for a moment he hoped would happen. When he noticed her, his posture shifted in a way that felt almost subtle but unmistakably warm. "Good morning, Maya," he said. Her breath hitched. "Good morning." He walked toward her, unhurried, as if her presence genuinely anchored his pace. "Are you headed to work or trying to escape from it?" he teased softly. She let out a nervous laugh. "Maybe both." "A reasonable answer," he replied with an amused glance. The elevator dinged. People poured in and out, buzzing with urgent conversations. Maya shifted her bag on her shoulder, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of the day, the week, everything that had changed since she had stepped into the wrong room. She needed to choose. Either she would step back into her carefully constructed distance, or she would step toward something new, something uncertain, something terrifying. "Elliot," she said softly. "About that coffee." He blinked, a tiny spark of surprise flickering across his face. "Yes." She took a breath. "Not today. I cannot today. But maybe." The elevator doors closed, and the next one opened. She forced the words out quickly. "Maybe after work? If that is still something you want." His expression softened instantly, gently, unmistakably. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "It is something I still want." "Okay," she whispered. "After work." His smile appeared then, small and careful, as if he did not want to scare the moment away. "Then I will be waiting." She turned before she could lose her nerve, hurrying toward the elevators. Her heart hammered all the way to her floor, but for the first time in weeks, it was not from stress. As the day went on, she caught herself thinking about how different Elliot seemed from the rumors she had heard around the office. People said he was cold, withdrawn, impossible to read, practically a ghost in his own empire. But she had seen something else. Something quiet. Something gentle. Something lonely. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, Maya felt like she had spent an entire day holding her breath. She shut down her computer, straightened her desk, and glanced at her reflection in the dark computer screen. She had not magically become someone more impressive in the last 10 hours, but she looked hopeful. Nervous, but hopeful. She stepped into the elevator, her pulse climbing with each descending floor. When the doors opened into the lobby, she saw him immediately. Elliot was there. Again, leaning against the side of the reception desk, hands clasped loosely in front of him. He looked up, and the moment his eyes met hers, his whole posture shifted, as if something inside him unclenched. "You came," he said quietly. She nodded. "I said I would." He walked toward her, not too close, not too fast, but with that same sense of intention that made it impossible to look away. "There is a place a few blocks away," he said. "Quiet. Good coffee. And the walk is not too long." Her nerves tangled into a tight knot, but she nodded. "Okay." As they stepped out of the tower together, the early evening air brushed against her skin, cool and welcoming. The city lights glimmered across the glass windows, and for a moment Maya felt as if she had stepped into a world she had only glimpsed from a distance. They walked side by side, a comfortable silence settling between them, broken only when Elliot asked softly, "Are you nervous?" "Terrified," she admitted. He smiled gently. "Me too." She glanced at him, startled by his honesty. "Why would you be terrified?" "Because," he said, eyes forward but voice steady. "It has been a long time since something mattered to me before I understood how to protect it." Her heart stuttered. The rest of the walk was quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that felt like the beginning of something. Not a mistake. Not an accident. Something unfolding slowly, intentionally, with every step they took together. The cafe Elliot chose was small, tucked between a bookstore and a tailor shop, the kind of place people only discovered by accident or through someone who cherished quiet corners of the city. Warm lights glowed from inside, and the faint smell of roasted coffee beans drifted through the open door. As they stepped in, Maya felt something loosen inside her, like the world outside had dimmed just enough for her to breathe. Elliot held the door for her, a gesture so simple yet unexpectedly grounding. They ordered 2 coffees and found a small table near the window, where the city lights shimmered like reflections on dark water. For a moment, they just sat there, both unsure how to begin. Finally, Elliot spoke. "I hope this place is all right," he said softly. "It is somewhere I go when I need a moment to think." "It is perfect," Maya replied, tracing the rim of her cup with her finger. "It feels calm." "That is why I come here," he said with a faint smile. She glanced up at him. "Do you need to escape often?" He paused, considering the question. "More than people realize," he admitted. "Everyone sees the title, the position, the decisions, the pressure, but they do not see the noise that comes with all of it." "What kind of noise?" she asked gently. "Expectations," he said. "Assumptions. The constant feeling that any wrong move could affect hundreds of people. And then there is the isolation. People either want something from me or fear saying the wrong thing." He met her eyes then, and there was something vulnerable in the way he looked at her, something honest. "It is rare for me to talk to someone without feeling like I have to guard every word." She felt a soft tug at her chest. "Is that why you like talking to me? Because I did not treat you like the CEO?" "Yes," he said, but then added, "and also because you see things differently. You observe without judgment. You notice small details most people overlook." She blinked, surprised. "How could you possibly know that?" He nodded toward her bag. "Your sketchbook. The way you looked around the cafe earlier, studying the lights, the layout, the rhythm of the space. People who observe the world that way tend to see things others miss." For a moment, Maya forgot how to breathe. No one had ever articulated something so personal about her with such clarity. "I did not realize you paid that much attention," she whispered. "I pay attention to the things that matter," he said simply. Her heart fluttered, and she looked down at her hands, trying to will herself not to get carried away. But Elliot's voice softened. "Maya, I know the timing is unusual, and I know our worlds do not look like they fit together easily. But I want to know you. Not because of curiosity, not because of an accident in a meeting room, but because every time I talk to you, something about my life feels less heavy." She felt the weight of his sincerity settle around her, warm and terrifying all at once. "I do not know what this is supposed to be," she confessed. I do not know if I am ready for something complicated. It does not have to be complicated, he said. We can start with honesty. With time. With moments like this. She lifted her gaze, searching his expression. But what about the difference between us? The positions, the expectations, the whispers. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes steady. Those differences only decide the story if we let them. I am not interested in a life built on titles. I am interested in a life built on truth. The words hit her with surprising force, like a gentle wave pulling her forward. Before she could respond, the cafe door opened and a group of people walked in, their voices loud enough to break the delicate quiet between her and Elliot. Maya looked toward the window, gathering her thoughts, her emotions swirling in ways she could barely name. Elliot watched her, patient, giving her the space she needed. After a long moment, she whispered, I want to try. I do not know where this leads, but I want to try. A soft breath escaped him, almost like relief. Then we take it one step at a time, he said. She nodded, feeling something settle inside her, something that felt like the start of a path she had never expected to walk. They finished their coffee slowly, talking about small things, laughing cautiously, building something fragile but real. And when they stepped out into the cool evening air, she felt the world shift just slightly, the way it does when something important quietly begins. Walking back toward the tower, Maya felt a strange, beautiful truth settling over her. The man beside her was not just the so high above the city. He was the quiet voice who had offered her a place to breathe. And now, she realized, she wanted to offer him the same. Over the next few weeks, something unspoken yet unmistakably real began weaving itself between Maya and Elliot. It was not dramatic or loud or filled with grand declarations. Instead, it grew in small, meaningful moments, like threads pulled together by gentle hands. They met for coffee after work, sometimes talking for hours, and sometimes sitting quietly while the city glowed outside the window. They walked the long way back to the tower, their footsteps falling into an unintentional rhythm. They learned things about each other that neither had shared with anyone. In a long time, Maya told him about her mother's medical bills, her fear of being just one mistake away from losing everything, and the sketchbook she carried everywhere because it made her feel like her dreams were still alive. Elliot told her about the pressure of running an empire, the loneliness that came with power, and the way people changed the moment they found out who he was. But with her, he said softly, he felt like himself. Still, the world around them was not blind. Whispers began to drift through the tower. Employees glanced a little too long when Maya walked through the lobby. Executives raised eyebrows when Elliot passed by with a more softened expression than usual. And one Monday morning, Maya stepped into her department only to be greeted by silence, followed by the unmistakable hum of gossip. A coworker leaned toward another, whispering just loud enough for Maya to hear. She is getting close to him. That is why she is being sent to upper floors. Another replied, he will get bored. They always do. The words pierced her like glass. She tried to shrug it off, but the weight settled in her stomach for the rest of the day. By the time she met Elliot after work, her smile was forced and her laughter thinner. He noticed instantly. Maya, he said quietly, something is wrong. She shook her head, trying to wave it away. It is nothing. Just work. Do not do that, he said gently. Do not shrink yourself when you are hurting. Her eyes stung. People are talking, she admitted. They think I am using you. They think you will lose interest. They think I am nothing. Elliot's expression darkened with something protective, something fierce but still controlled. You are not nothing, he said firmly. And anyone who assumes that is blind to what is right in front of them. She looked down at her hands. But what if they are right? What if this is too strange, too different, too impossible? For a long moment, Elliot did not speak. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out something she recognized instantly. Her sketchbook, the one she had left behind in the cafe days ago without realizing it. He had kept it with him. He opened it to a page she had drawn long before she ever met him, a sketch of a small room with soft lighting and calm air, a place she hoped one day to work in. Do you remember this? He asked. She nodded slowly. It is the studio I want to design someday. I had the team prepare something, he said. I was going to show you later, but I think you need it now. Confusion flickered across her face as he guided her out of the cafe and down 2 blocks to the tower. They took an elevator she had never used before, one that required a keycard she had never seen. It opened into a floor unlike any she had stepped onto. A wide room, lit with warm panels, filled with large interactive screens displaying design prototypes. On the central display was her sketchbook page, fully rendered into a digital mock-up. Her breath caught. "Elliot, what is this?" "It is your vision," he said softly. "Your ideas. Your perspective. You think you are small, but you are not. You create things that deserve to be seen." She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Why would you do this?" "Because," he said, stepping closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted you to see yourself the way I see you." Tears welled in her eyes. "Elliot," he reached out, not touching her, but offering his presence like an anchor. "I do not care about whispers. I care about truth. And the truth is that you matter. To this tower. To your work. To me." The last words broke something open inside her, something she had held shut for far too long. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Then I want to stay. I want to try. I want whatever this is with you." Relief washed over his face, warm and unmistakable, and he let out a breath as if he had been holding it for weeks. "Then stay," he whispered back, "and we will build it together." In that quiet room, under soft lights and the glow of her own sketches brought to life, Maya realized she had never walked into the wrong place at all. She had walked into exactly where she was meant to be. And the man who stood beside her was no longer the reclusive CEO in the tower. He was the person she had chosen, and the person who had chosen her right back. Their story had begun with a mistake. But now, standing there with the future unfolding in front of them, Maya understood the truth. Sometimes the best things in life do not happen because you plan them. They happen because you accidentally walk into the right room at the right moment, and someone decides to meet you exactly where you are.